This is the Kpopcast, bringing you best sounds and ideas in K-pop each week. I'm DJ Peter Lowe.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm DJ John. What's up?
There we go.
Sorry, I'm not following the script. I thought it was
all good.
My bad.
Off script already.
All good. So, as you heard, it's our favorite K-pop DJ John. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. Sorry.
All good.
And this week, we are all doing a deep dive into I-dle's Tomboy. But before we dive in, don't forget to join the Kpopcast community on Slack and sign up for hard-hitting editorial on our newsletter. Links to those in the episode description.
And now, let's dive in.
Yeah, I'm Tomboy. Yeah, I'll be the tomboy. This is my attitude. Yeah, I'll be the tomboy.
All right, so here's the press release background that we got on the album. By the way, we also went to the press conference, I should add, to the album drop release party, whatever press conference. And there was a Q&A for journalists. I asked some questions and I got no answers. Well, I mean, I think they did their best, but I don't think they understood the answer, the questions. So I-dle, which is what I guess they're now choosing to call themselves, I-dle, for simplicity's sake. You even hear them say I-dle in this song. They're keeping the way it's spelled out, but the way you pronounce it and say it was just I-dle, I guess, is their preference moving forward. So this is their first album. It's I Never Die, and it's an album that consists of their feelings and thoughts on not only the prejudice against themselves, but on prejudice in the world.
Oh.
The comeback is good news for many global fans who have been supporting them a long time. The press release says that it heightens anticipations of K-pop fans with their self-produced songs. Besides
self-produced?
Many songs, like if you look at the production credits on all the songs, every single song, guess who's next to it?
Your girl.
Soyeon.
Yes. My girl. My girl. Yeah. So she's credited everywhere. Also for a lot of the lyrics on virtually all the songs as well. Well, we'll talk about more of that in a moment. But,
Of course.
Yeah, does she want to take credit for some lyrics?
Yeah, anyway.
All right.
So
stay tuned.
Yeah. It has 9 tracks. So the album contains Tomboy, Never Die, Villian Dies, My Bag. There's a CD only version of Tomboy, which is composed by Soyeon, written and composed by Soyeon. Already and Escape are co-composed by Minnie. Polaroid and Liar are co-composed and co-written by Yuki.
My girl.
By fully letting out I-dle skills that they have been building up over the years and capturing the messages the group wanted to convey, the album is expected to show I-dle's broadened range of musical capabilities. I
feel like this line in particular is just like AI generated and put into every K-pop press release.
Yeah.
Expected to show their broadened range of musical capabilities.
It could be lost in translation too, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think what they're trying to say here, and this last line says that they're trying to bring out their feelings of authenticity, you know, by being more involved in the production and the songwriting process.
Sure.
There are 3 new concepts in this album. So the group is already known for being quote unquote concept masters.
I like
because
that.
they get new visual transformations every time they've got a comeback. So the 3 main concepts in this album consist of a noir style risky version, a chill version that is relaxed in a cool revenge squad concept, and spoiled version that expresses the protagonist who is arbitrary but is hard to hate, have captured I-dle's matured facial expressions and visuals, and have foreshadowed the various emotions that are to be shown in this album. Interestingly,
matured
stylistically,
facial expressions.
when you look at risky, chill, and spoiled, the I is lowercase.
Yep.
In each of them. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that's I can read more, but you guys get the gist. So that's the PR babble.
All right, so we're going to look out for the matured facial expressions in the music video.
Yes.
Let's see if we notice. So now that we have some background on the album and what it means in the bigger I-dle picture, let's hear what were all of our hit replays on the album. P-Lo, you first.
I think we were messaging each other about making sure we weren't picking our own hit replay about off of this album.
Yeah.
And I think I messaged you, Stephanie, like, oh, I like the weird sounding one with Soyeon.
And I was like, which one?
Which one?
Yeah. So looked up later. It was Villian Dies is the name of the song. And it's weird sounding because it's got this like really weird cacophony of like acoustic sounds and a funky drop. And it's just, odd, like...
There's some like serious genre switches.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's got a good beat, like percussive beat. So you're mixing like these weird funky sounds and like this like sort of, the next closest analogy I would make is Beats Antique. I don't know if anyone knows that band. But they're another band known for the way they mix a lot of like brass and symphonic samples together, and then with like a modern hip hop beat, but not just like a hip hop beat, but I think a particular beat that goes really well if you're under the influence of
something. Never mind.
Marijuana.
Something we in the Bay are familiar with.
Yeah, weed. I was trying to see if I can get away with a PC. But anyway, that's what it's known for. So I think very similar vibes to that.
If the villain dies.
That's my hit replay.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
All right. Stephanie, what's your hit replay?
For me, I appreciated the song Liar because I think it was pretty simple but well executed in that it kept my attention the whole time with this driving, big, bad bass and percussion beat, right? It had that rock sound to it, but the melody was appealing as well. And I like that Yuki had a big part in it and helped to write it. That's my girl.
There you go.
You keep calling me a liar. I don't feel any desire. We speed and drifting, don't need no tires. So you can call me filthy liar. Yeah.
And how about you,
And then
DJ John?
John?
Me?
Yeah.
All right. I'm a hip hop dude, so I like my bag, of course. I mean, that was a record.
Yeah.
That was a
My
record
bag.
that, like, after I heard the single, I was like sifting through it looking for B-sides I could put in the mix show. And then I was like, oh, it's got to be my bag. Because that's the only one that's like drums and rapping. So hip hop. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes.
I think we all share that. I think that was a very close hit replay for all of us, right?
For all of us, yeah. I was almost going to pick
I
it.
picked the
Yuki is
cliche one.
rapping in that one. It sounds so good.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
That song reminds me of Chanmina Bijin. So just put that out there in case anyone else hears the
It took me a second, but okay.
resemblance. So something you might want to mix together.
Yeah. I'm familiar, definitely.
Cool.
I gotta cut it out though, because there's some cussing that happens in like the second part of that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
gotta pay attention.
For podcast listeners, you can't see, but DJ John just did the what is that meme again? That where you tap
gotta
your
use your
forehead as
noodle.
if you know. Yeah.
You gotta use your noodle.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta make it Asian. You gotta use your noodle. You know what I'm saying? Okay. All right.
Oh,
All
wow.
right.
Thank you.
Let's move along.
Red 5 diamonds in my bag. If you wanna sit down, to be like that. My mama's so oh my god damn. Okay, I show you what's in my bag. Red 5 diamonds in my bag. If you wanna sit down, to be like that. My mama's so oh my god damn. Okay, I show you what's in my bag.
So those are our hit replays off the album. But let's react together to the title track, Tomboy. So podcast listeners, we're watching I-dle's Tomboy in 3, 2, 1, go.
Turn it up.
Love the colors. And this guitar riff and loop has been what stays in my head well after the song.
Look at you, 넌 못 감당해 날 You took off hook, keep burning cold like brew. Look, my toe, my accident tattoo. I got to drink up now.
She is selling that vocal delivery.
I love it.
With her like over it, petulant voice.
I love the looks Soyeon gives us here.
The snarl, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, queen of snarl.
You see the Barbie. And the,
Look at that.
Of course, because they're badasses, driving cars.
Got a red car.
Yeah, I'm tomboy.
I
Cussing.
love the way, yeah, it fills up.
Profanity.
And we got the rocker bullhorn. I don't know. You've got the muscle pose.
And they're doing the rock hand signals.
Yep.
That's a big part of the choreography. The point dance, maybe.
I don't wanna play this ping pong.
I know this part has been contested. People have different thoughts on this. But I think we can all appreciate how good she looks.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so she was just basically trashing the kitchen, showing, women's place is not in the kitchen. She stabbed a cake shaped like a heart, so doesn't like Valentine's Day, I'm sure.
Yeah, real badasses, they never look at the fire or explosions. They always walk away.
Yeah, they just slowly walk away.
That was timed really well with the lollipop hitting the floor and like exploding.
We see the girls in baggy pants with ripped holes at the knees. That's probably the most tomboy element of fashion.
Or licking a lollipop off the floor. I don't know what Soyeon was thinking there.
That's the
'Cause
one
she's a
from the
rebel.
floor. No, Soyeon.
Oh, this is the best part of the song right here.
Barbie and Ken.
But I love how the girls are swaying back and forth to the beat. It's just like a twinge of evil eeriness.
Definitely evil.
Here we go with the choreo.
Neither man nor woman. Okay.
Just me loving tomboy.
Disrupting the gender binary. No.
No, not really.
I like this. They take
Yeah,
turns
those
doing their
poses are really
yeah.
good. Woo! And the kick in the face to end it all.
And Soyeon.
The queen.
Yes, gotta end with Saya.
Yeah, I love just the instrumental of this song, the rock vibes that we're getting. But this loop is
Rock
so
is in this
catchy.
year.
Yeah.
There's our boy.
Peace.
Oh, and he falls to
He
his
didn't
death.
make it.
Nope.
Yeah. All right.
Woo.
Nice.
So I think what was just fun is that you've got a wonderful blend of different visual styles. Not a lot of tomboy, I guess, visually.
What is tomboy? I think we can
let's
laugh about
define
it,
that,
but
yeah.
what do we have in mind here,
I think
Peter?
Oh, yes. What, should we dive into the feminism discussion or
Or just talk about the visuals like you were saying in that context. Visually, what did you expect or hope for as tomboy?
Well, so we had the chance to watch this during the press conference, and I think, I just went into it I knew what the concept was going to be about, but I was ready to embrace whatever they were going to give me, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the definition of tomboy, and if you want to be really, finger pointy about it, I think of a girl in boys' clothing, wanting to play the boys' games, right? That's what I think of.
Right.
When I think of tomboy, that's what I think of. So seeing this, it kind of reminded me a lot of CLC's No. It's like red lip, no. High heels, no. Handbag, no. And yet they have each of those things.
All of those things.
in the music video that they're wearing.
Right.
You got to sell.
Yeah. So
That's what I'm saying.
I think it's certainly more girl crushing in the looks that they're giving us in the costuming and the outfits, but not exactly a tomboy. Edgy, to be sure. Fashionable, yes.
Yeah.
Tomboy.
Yeah, closer to what you would consider rock style fashion.
Yes.
Yeah.
The black leather, the red lip,
It's just reminded me of Avril Lavigne. you know?
Yep.
Just like rocking. It's like kicking ass, but still being a girl.
Feminine.
Yeah.
Still being feminine, right?
Yeah.
It's not like,
totally.
because what you were saying about CLC, it's, you know, because I think of Tomboy and I go way back to the 90s with TLC.
Yeah.
And that's overalls
Ooh,
and like, you know, just baggy
Overalls,
pants
yeah.
and just like
Gotta have
straight up,
overalls.
like acting like a dude kind of thing. Whatever that means
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Back then that was just more defined, I guess. But now it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we tweeted earlier, just asking everyone, like, hey, what do you all think of I-dle's Tomboy? And our favorite girl, Dina, she tweeted in saying, for me, it's the timing of the song that aligns with what's happening in the country that is the most interesting. I like the song and the rocker vibes are cool, but I'm really curious about the statement it's making in South Korea's current political climate. Great question, Dina. So we looked into this perhaps more than we needed to.
You're thorough though. Come on.
Hey, we talked to a lot of different people on this.
Take credit.
I'll add that I reached out to a number of people who are regarded as experts on this topic in their field, but just didn't want to talk about it because they're kind of traumatized right now, given the current political climate in Korea.
Which is what?
The quick background, and we'll play a clip here. We had a chance to speak with
Jieun Lee, and I am a South Korean columnist and pundit who talks mostly about Korean politics and occasionally dabbles in media content, especially Korean movies and TV shows.
Great. Well, thank you for your time and for joining us, John. So as we mentioned to you just via Twitter, we're really interested in diving into Yeoja I-dle's song, Tomboy, and it comes at an interesting time. There's a lot of interesting discussion around feminism in Korea, especially in light of the incoming administration. Maybe you can provide a little bit more color. Like, what is the socio-political environment right now in Korea? Especially for, feminist or feminist-like themes in art and music?
Well, I think it is quite important that we need to divorce K-pop and politics in order to have this discussion. Because when we talk about South Korean politics right now, feminism is a dirty word. It's starting to change post-election, but at least until just a few days ago, no one wanted to be associated with this word, especially when it came from the right, which was associated with the likes of the People Power Party, who was led by Lee Jun-suk, who is the chairman, and Yoon Sung-yeol, who was just elected president. They have tried to take a huge step away from feminism. In fact, Lee Jun-suk is the typical anti-feminist. He has taken a lot of the typical anti-feminist rhetoric that you might see on 4chan, for example. And he has taken that, and he's the walking, talking version of 4chan. And he has taken a lot of those men's rights activist talking points and has stood against feminist movements in general. And a few days ago, there was a Washington Post interview where the candidate, Yoon Sung-yeol, said that he was a feminist, but when that interview went viral, he had to take that back and say that he wasn't a feminist a day before the elections actually took place. And so that's where the elections were. And now that he's the president, or the president-elect, at least for now, he said that as soon as he does become president, he is going to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. Now, the question is if he will completely abolish it, or if he will just restructure it and give it a different name or do something else with it. That's a different question altogether. But it's still not a good image. Right now, feminism is not associated all that well. And the same thing happened with the progressives. The progressive candidate, Lee Jae-myung, when he was campaigning, there was this one time when he was about to be interviewed for a podcast or a radio station, and the host was a feminist. And when he found out, he pulled out immediately before the interview could even take place. And that was that was a progressive candidate. And so now that they have lost, and they have finally found out that, oh, maybe they shouldn't be alienating women. After all of the progressive leadership, they resign en masse. They have just appointed a new interim leader. And one of the interim leaders they just appointed is a 26-year-old feminist, a young lady. And so now they're finally taken this step forward and saying, okay, we are going to completely rebrand and we're going to start taking women seriously. And now there's this change within the Progressive Party, at least. And so hopefully we're going to see some changes. And that's the political side of things in Korea. The K-pop side, on the other hand, that's always been different. Now, I just heard that song that you linked to me. Now, I'll be super honest with you. Although this is a K-pop podcast, I am a K-pop novice. I don't really listen to K-pop all that much. Now, on occasion, sure, but not all that often. So I've never heard of I-dle before you showed me that link. And I heard the song and I read the lyrics and I got the gist of it. It's the Ssen-Unni concept that you guys talked about. And essentially, they took the word tomboy and they just replaced the word feminist. Instead of saying the word feminist, they just said tomboy. Sure. And I thought it was a cheeky way of going about things. And all right. On one side, I thought it was quite clever. And on the other side, I thought it was quite sad that that's what they had to resort to. They had to use the word tomboy instead of using the word feminist. And on another aspect of it, it was also not all that surprising because this whole Ssen-Unni concept, the strong woman concept, is not new. We can go back years. Poa,
Yes.
who's been a K-pop artist for 20 years, she's been this epitome of this strong woman, strong idol, strong female empowerment figure for 20 years. And she's not the only one. Red Velvet, Hyuna, Blackpink, Mamamoo, they've all done the same thing as well. And so I think it's important to point out that K-pop is also a business and they know what sells. And it's not just Korean buyers, it's also international buyers. People all around the world, there are K-pop fans all around the world and they want, female empowerment. They want those kinds of messages. And so, sure, they would sell that kind of message on one end on K-pop, but in politics, those are two different beasts altogether, I think.
Yeah, I'm coming to this discussion with like a very biased Western,
Right.
mindset and paradigm, right?
Sure.
So, when I think of feminism, right, I'm inheriting like a lot of like the Western definitions and usage of that term. Does feminism like mean something different in Korea? Like, does it take on a different translation or meaning?
Well, it depends on whom you ask, really.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. If you ask a feminist, I'm sure that they will say that it means the same thing that you're saying that it means. But, if you talk to one of those red-pilled men's rights activists here, they'll tell you that it doesn't. In fact, a very frequent talking point that a lot of young men in Korea will give you is that feminism is not pro-women, but rather it is anti-men, because a lot of young men will say that it is men who are the victims of sexism in Korea, as ridiculous as that may seem. And the talking point that they keep going back to is the military conscription service here in Korea. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the topic, but in the Korean constitution, it says that all citizens have a duty to serve in the military. The constitution is very gender neutral when it comes to military conscription. But when it comes to actual practice, it's only the men who have to serve. Now, currently, it's about only 18 months that men have to serve. It used to be 36 months back in the day, but then it got reduced to 24, 21, and now 18. But regardless of how long they have to serve, it's only the men who have to serve. And a lot of the men are saying, because we have to serve in the military for however long that we have to serve, that's when we have to waste the prime months of our lives. And during that time, women go to college, they graduate, and they get jobs, and we have to compete with them, etc., etc. And that's one of the key talking points that they keep coming back to. Never mind all of the other structural benefits that men keep having and all the other benefits that we have. For example, hiring and firing or promotions or gender income gap. They don't mention all of that. They keep coming back to this one talking point. And so yeah, going back to your question, it really depends on whom you're asking and how selective they will be.
If you could just, look into your crystal ball and guess, where you see things going and heading, do you think art and music is going to change from because clearly political candidates, even progressive political candidates are censoring themselves and being very careful in how they talk about this. Do you see similar acts or changes in K-pop music?
I think we will continue to see more videos like the ones that we just saw from I-dle. They will continue to broach the topic of feminism without actually saying the word feminism. And it goes back to what I said earlier. We have to separate business and politics. The K-pop industry knows what sells, and they're going to try to sell what they can, but at the same time, they're going to try to make sure that they can sell things without getting canceled. And so it's at the same time business savvy, but also at the same time political cowardice.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm almost kind of reminded of a lot of diplomatic language around China's one China policy. Mm-hmm. Taiwan is well, we're gonna kind of pretend Taiwan is there and not pretend it's there at the same time. It's same thing with these labels who want to be yes, we're for female empowerment, but not there.
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
Time. So it's just such a weird way to tiptoe around it. But I mean, yeah, if they can double dip, why not?
You mentioned talking about, they're saying tomboy instead of saying feminist. But I'm pretty sure most people who don't speak Korean will just what is tomboy equivalent in Korean language? And I think most people will think of the word, what was it? 말과랑이? I think that's what you get when you type it in a Papago. But when it comes to using tomboy versus using feminist, they're using tomboy specifically as the English word for this kind of concept. Is there the actual Korean equivalent, and do you think there's an intention of saying it in English rather than saying what you would use as the Korean word for it?
Well, you have to understand that the Korean language is a very international language nowadays. If you speak to a typical Korean and you ask them, do you speak English? Then they will likely say no. But if you actually talk to them for a while, you'll realize that half of what they're saying are English words.
Right, Konglish.
Yeah, the word
Konglish
tomboy
words.
itself, sure, it's obviously not a Korean word, but it has long ago entered the Korean vernacular. And we understand what the word means. And the word has already been used as a boyish girl. But, whether or not that's understood as the code for feminist, I don't know if that's actually been deciphered yet, but we'll see.
All right. We also looked into, I want to call out this fabulous paper by Jieun Lee. Am I pronouncing this right, Stephanie?
I would need to see her Korean name.
Okay.
It's possibly Jieun.
Jieun.
Or, yeah.
Jieun Lee. And then...
or Jieun, right, because it's just EU. So I don't know. I would need to see the Korean.
The second author is Hyangsoon.
Hyangsoon.
There we go.
Yeah.
Whatever these guys said. So
I don't even speak Korean.
We're going to provide a link to this paper in the description of the episode because it's just a really fantastic paper that I encourage you all to read. But looking at this concept of tomboy, you see a lot of themes of female empowerment. Certainly not the first time that we've seen it in K-pop. But what I really like about this paper that they call out is that one of their main points is that girl crush and lowercase feminism,
which they associate in their paper with the concept of Ssen-Unni. Some of you might recognize Jessie's song and music video.
Come on, Jessie.
Ssen-Unni. Yeah. And so they use that term kind of interchangeably with girl crush in the paper.
Yeah. I guess the critique that they have for this trend and this concept is that it still operates under a patriarchal male gaze assumption. So yes, you can define whatever you want to be, but it's still a lot of these concepts and these songs turn back to, I can be sexy to get him back, for example, or this is seen as empowerment because these are male poses. or these are male things to do. So the one example that I really love that they bring out in Korean literature is that I guess in classic Korean literature, consuming alcohol and tobacco symbolizes an act of resistance against a patriarchal and sexist power structure. So women who break the law are seen as reclaiming that. But again, I think their overarching thesis in this is that, but that's still, under the patriarchal paradigm.
Right.
So,
and because of Confucianism as well, which is by nature a patriarchal design, because it's like there's a lot of he and men do this. This is the family. This is how it's structured. So it's kind of like you want change to happen, but you're within this system that's just like built such a male chauvinist way that you can't, like, what are you going to do? What can you really do? And the only way to express your like feminist ideas, you still have to temper it with being soft too. Like Jessie, she's like powerful. Who that be? And like, she's no joke, from New Jersey and all that. But when people get to know her, it's often said in their interviews that, oh, but you're a big softie. And she's like, you got me. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that I feel like that's why she's accepted, maybe, So, but it's still making some.
That's why they let her in.
Maybe it's still making some headway, moving the needle a tiny bit. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think the authors of the paper that's what they find optimism. They recognize that yes, this is still operating under a patriarchal paradigm, but at least it's somewhat moving the needle in the right direction. And hopefully, in reading this paper, we can find new avenues for healthy consumptions of hallyu content, such that this can scale in the right way, that women, girls, and whatnot can shape the discourse, shape, what it is to be transformative.
Right.
So I gave the reference, the example that I gave earlier of alcohol, tattoos. We see the same thing in this music video, right? It's like, well, Soyeon, oh, I've got, whiskey and tattoos. And one of the lines says that she has Coke, like Coca-Cola, the drink. That rumors have said that a part of the reason why maybe these lyrics are so clunky and weird is that rumors have indicated that it was originally cocaine and it was more hyped up, like I'm piecing out, rather than I'm chilling like Coke. So
what?
Unconfirmed.
I don't know, man. That's a leap for K-pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be too much.
I was surprised they had a bleeped out F word.
Yeah, it's almost like, the bleeped out F word is like unnecessary censorship style, where it's just like they didn't even need to do that, but they did it just to be like, maybe we said it, maybe we didn't. You'll never know.
You'll never know.
Well, I think
that's the whole thing about K-pop is that plausible deniability, the queer baiting, and that's my
no one's out.
Right. Exactly. And that's the form of co-optation, of being able to take credit or dip in to progressive or radical scene or aesthetic, but not actually stand by it politically.
Because
I'm not indicting the artists or anything, but these companies that produce and approve this content. Yeah, it's all about the money, as DJ John is gesturing right now.
Gotta get paid.
On that note, let's play this clip from Hye Jin. Right. Stephanie asked this question of Professor Hye Jin Lee.
Would you say that I guess lowercase feminism, girl crush in the hands of K-pop labels is an example of co-optation, or an example of maybe defanging the structural potential of these concepts by making it a like you mentioned, it is still for a type of male gaze. So is there any potential at all for these kinds of concepts to push things forward progress-wise, or is it just the system getting smarter at co-opting things that are popular?
Oh, yeah. Wow, tough question. No, this is definitely a form of co-optation because, like, think about why these groups, like girl groups, are now being made the way they are. It's because the K-pop industry has realized that if a girl group, if they want the girl groups to exist for a long time, they need to go after the female fans who tend to be more active with their fan practices, who tend to be more visible on social media, who tend to buy more things. They've learned that. Like I'm thinking about like even Wonder Girls and Girls' Generation. If you look at the fans who are still with them, it's mostly women. They're the ones who kind of like have stayed, like, male fans have moved on to other girl groups, like the younger girl groups. But I'm looking at like Girls' Generation and their fandom, and it's mostly women who grew up with them. And it's kind of like astounding they've existed, but it was always like the male fans that have gotten more attention. But female fans have always existed, and they're the ones who kind of like keep the groups to continue to exist. So I think the industry realized that in order to be successful in the long run, they need to go after the female fans who tend to express it through purchasing. They have more purchasing power, first of all. And second of all, they tend to be more expressive in the way they show their loyalty and their affection for the groups. So now even girl groups are like, are being created with the female fans in mind, and then like picking up male fans. It's the other way around. It's not like, let's make a girl group that appeals to men and hopefully will attract the female fans in the process. I think it's the other way around now. Let's create a group, whether it's a boy band or a girl group, let's create a group that appeals to the female fans and then pick up boys in the process. I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like there's been that kind of a change with the strategy, especially after 2016, 2017, when feminism has started to become really, really a very, hot topic issue in Korea. And I think a lot of women have also changed their stance on girl groups. There used to be, like, for so long, in Korea, and I think it's still in the States too, there's been this perception that women are like competing against other women or men, that women cannot be allies to other women. I think that's changed in Korea, in Korean society, and we're seeing that with fandom as well, because a lot of girl groups that are being supported are by women. Like I see a lot of discussions with female fans talking about how it is their responsibility to help girl groups to survive. They're the ones who are being exploited. They're the ones who, are being objectified. So it's the women who need to look after them, take care of them. So even like what was surprising is like even like these QC groups, like Oh My Girl is like one of the groups that I didn't think would appeal to female fans, but they're actually really popular with female fans in Korea. They're more like QC kind of a group, but they're, they have a huge female fandom. So like now, like the Korean K-pop fans, like female fans, their way of thinking about girl groups have changed significantly. They see girl groups as an ally, as a sister. And in fact, I think like, because so many K-pop female fans have been disappointed with male idols because of all these scandals, they're like, you know what? Liking girl groups actually is better because I don't have to worry about all these nonsense, So I know some female fans have moved over to the girl groups because it's less stressful, and there's pleasure in supporting a fellow women. So I think that has also played a role in why we're seeing shifts in the relationship between female fans and girl groups. They're no longer enemies. They're now allies, sisters, if that makes sense. And so maybe that can, like in the long run, that can bring some kind of changes. But to get back to your question, this is definitely like a marketing strategy by the K-pop companies. They understand the power of female fans, so that's why they're changing the looks and the style of girl groups. Making them edgier, making them look more, like jumping on the girl power bandwagon And I'm also thinking like the popularity of Street Women Fighter
Right.
will also linger for a while. And you know, I mean, think about like the overwhelming popularity of that show with women. It was all about women, like, you know, helping each other, like friendly competition. It's not like women bringing other women down. You can still compete to be the best, but uphold, like, you know, but be supportive. And a lot of women like that because for so long they've been told that they have to fight against each other. But now they're told that it actually can compete, but still be friendly and still help each other to be better. And that positive message, I think, is now being reflected in Korean popular culture in general. And it has to do with the changes in Korean culture as well. And a lot of women in their 20s and 30s, unlike their older generation, are more open to that message. They're more interested in gender issues. I mean, think about the way they voted in this election. So that's going to have an impact, even though the Korean society might continue with the anti-feminist backlash for a while. Like young women are not going to stand still. They're also going to engage in all these activities to fight against that. So we'll see how that is reflected in K-pop songs, especially songs by girl groups.
Yeah, it's not lost on me that so Queendom is one of the lyrics in the song.
Yeah.
Right. The show Queendom that they were on, and you contrast with the male version of the show Kingdom.
Oh man,
Kingdom was very much zero-sum game. You know, we're gonna beat out
legendary war.
Versus yours. And the Queendom, the show, what was so great about it, it's just more like, you know, we're each on different places on our respective careers and our journey. Let's all kind of lift each other up, and, you know, knowing that we're in different stages and going for different concepts, like, you know, here's what we can all collectively learn from the experience. So
I mean, it's not just, I mean, you also have to think about like why they're doing this. It's not just the Korean culture environment. It's also I-dle trying to expand, become more visible in the US market. They've signed up with a US record label, right? So, and it's not just I-dle. I think like K-pop groups in general, and especially girl groups, they've all, you know, kind of ditched, even like Twice has gotten edgier over the years. Two reasons. One, because they've grown. They're no longer teenagers. They're all young women. So doing the QC stuff kind of doesn't make sense anymore. Looks weird when, you know, they're mostly in their mid-20s. And because now they're signed up with a US label, and they're trying to, you know, venture in the US market. So they know that doing a very passive, feminine, hyper-feminine kind of performance won't necessarily, I mean, it'll still be appealing to a certain group of people, but not to like a more mainstream audience, especially with female audience in the States. So this is not just a reflection of what's going on in Korea, but how the K-pop industry is looking outwards, or more so than before, now that they are signed up with US labels and they're becoming more aggressive in their venture in the US market. So we'll see how that all plays into the changes or non-changes that we see in K-pop music.
I just want to go back to this question that I asked John, and I feel like it might tie into the confusion of using the word tomboy and then seeing the execution. Because obviously, when, at least my personal definition of tomboy, you think of very like androgynous styling and things like that. John mentioned this, like tomboy it's a Konglish word, like it is used in Korean vernacular. Is there possibly a disconnect like we see with other Konglish words where a word is used but it does mean something different when used in the Korean context?
Yeah, that can be possible. Like in the States, I think it's about rejection of, like, women rejecting femininity, right? But I feel like, I don't know if it's a Konglish thing. I think it might be a K-pop thing. Understanding tomboy as anything that kind of like deviates from this conventional womanhood, maybe gets to be understood as tomboy. So women no longer performing in skirts or uniforms. I think with this, I only saw the music video, so I could, I don't know what kind of like attire that G-idle is in when they're performing Tomboy. Maybe like I remember like when AOA started adopting girl crush concept and moving away from this very feminine, girly concept, they started wearing suits. And I think that's, you know, like neckties and suits and variation of suits to kind of like, you know, express some sense of androgyny, although it was really androgynous. I guess it's like androgyny within the Korean, I don't know, like Korean standard. So yeah, maybe like Tomboy can, like the way it is being used in the song is like based on Korean culture's understanding of Tomboy, although I don't really know what that is. I feel like it's more about like unconventionality rather than like a rejection of femininity. I know like in Korea the meaning of tomboy can be different. I just don't know how people in Korea are understanding tomboy today. I'd be surprised. Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. Like, because I grew up in Korea, my understanding of tomboy was always like Amber is a tomboy. Right. Amber from FX. Like that's my understanding and my definition of tomboy, not girls who are wearing suits. Like, you know, yeah.
Yeah,
but
full,
again,
full makeup and black leather. Like, wait a minute, that's like not quite.
Very hyper feminine, because that's why it was so confusing to me. And then even in the lyrics, they talk about how tomboy is an attitude. It's not what's, you know. I think I have to look at the lyrics.
No, I was thinking like, oh, it's an attitude. How convenient! Yeah. So you can still look like a K-pop star. You know?
Exactly, and have an attitude that is very different from this passive feminine, you know, being like, you know, being in control, like, you know, seemingly knowing what you're doing, being independent, strong, whatever. So I think that's the definition of tomboy in this song and in G-idle's other song, and then maybe tomboy in general. But it's not about like, you know, like being androgynous or, you know, rejecting femininity, which is how I understand tomboy. And then I think there's even, another point that was very confusing to me in the lyrics is when they say, like, it's neither men nor women. It's neither man nor women, just me loving tomboy. I mean, it looks like they're rejecting gender binary, which would be really revolutionary. But I doubt that is what is going on here. It would be awesome if that's what was intended, but I doubt it, because I really don't think they have a clear understanding of what tomboy is. Yeah, when I saw the lyrics, I was confused. When I saw the music video, I was confused. But I do know that they are trying to present a very different kind of womanhood, and using tomboy as a way to do that. And again, because they're able to do that because this is a group that appeals to female fans, or their core fandom is female fans.
Yeah. So I think for something to be capital F feminist, it's got to be, let's get organized.
right.
Let's collectively bargain. Let's be transformative, and let's, you know, get out and vote and call for very action oriented things.
Right. I would take it a step further. Like, actually, you could confront the gender binary. Mm-hmm. You could explore what it's like to play a lot of different genders or none, and just experiment with stuff that seems absurd rather than playing out something that we've already seen in terms of a female aesthetic. You could also, you know, what one of my hit replays from a few weeks ago was Mama Dol, Woo
I was
Hip,
just thinking
because
that. Yep.
they're, you know, they're not the Aegyo, they're not the girl crush necessarily. These are moms. And there's a line in the Woo Hip song that says, I know what it's like to birth 3 children out of my body. Do you know? And it was just this really strong, in your face, maternal, powerful, almost like matriarch, divine, feminine strength.
Yep.
That like we never see. And that's a whole other option that I think does a bit more to combat patriarchal hierarchy than what we see in the I-dle video today.
Yeah.
There's just so many more options on the landscape that I'm waiting for them to try. But I think like DJ John was saying earlier, patriarchy and like Confucianism, like you mentioned, is this all-encompassing thing that like narrows the bounds of your imagination.
Yeah.
You can either be sexy or cute. You can either be like, right? Like all of them are for the male gaze, and all of them promote patriarchy into the future. They don't break it down. Yeah.
Well said.
It reminds me of technological determinism. Like, are you guys familiar with this concept?
Yeah.
So
No, what is it?
okay, sorry.
Tell me.
Undergraduate philosophy of technology student here.
Yeah, go for it.
So
Velociraptor in the house.
Actually, this is very specifically a Marxist.
Did you say Velociraptor?
Yeah,
that's Peter.
Yeah, something I was
That's so good.
with. But I think it was one of Marx's papers. Was it Marx or was it Heidegger? Marx, I believe. I'm going to go with Marx.
Okay.
But in one of
We'll
his pieces, he writes that, or was it Wittgen? Oh my God, it's been way too long.
Just say
Just say it because we won't
go
argue
in.
with you who or what.
Okay. So, like, there's many different ways of like revealing phenomena or the world, right? Like you've got art,
Whoa.
you've got I don't know, communication, whatever. But technology has a very particular way of revealing the world, such that it forces you to view it through a certain lens that self-perpetuates itself and rules out others. So it's very inframing. Inframing is the word that you would use. And big thing of technological determinism is that your needs are no longer your needs, but it's being subverted by technology, and it's telling you what you need to do to keep the machine running, to keep this thing going. And it can even be further metaphysically theorized that like, well, then the future isn't so much in the control of humanity, but whatever, the machine dictates. And so like you could like linearly, predict where things are going from what the technology defines, the future. So changing free will to what the machine. Let's say you're very into Instagram, right? You're going to do things for the likes. So there are certain things, behaviors that you need to be doing to get those likes on Instagram.
Yeah.
For example.
And you don't even know, like, you're subconsciously doing them, falling into the flow and the trap of the app. Yeah. There's a really good Black Mirror episode on that brings it to life. Yeah. I bet. Like that argument, I would love to like shift the magnifying glass over to like capitalism.
Yeah.
It's like, is technology really determining it, or
or is it the dollars? Because it's for the likes,
dollars,
it's
the
for
corporations,
engagement, and making people like be
why
on your platform.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think maybe it was in fact Marx, because he talks about the productive forces and that being
production. Yeah.
Yeah, the means of production, i.e., technology. So technology,
we
and capitalism.
definitely worship that stuff, almost like a spiritual. Yeah, totally.
Okay, thanks for
what's the
Neverland
connection
fans for
to...
joining in for this week's undergraduate-led, probably mistranslated philosophy discussion. But yeah, I just want to bring this back to co-opting, right? That you were talking about, Stephanie. That the machine, the K-pop machine, is gonna want to have its cake and eat it too. It's gonna want to say that it's feminist, but not be feminist at the same time. This, I think, going to the paper.
Yeah, I just want to say, out of all of the ways you could prove or convey that you're feminist, your fashion is probably like the weakest one you could do in terms of in terms of a K-pop video. I think having lyrics, message could be actually really powerful. I think, I don't know, paying the staff equally could be even more powerful. Structural changes, the bigger, more systemic you get, just like representation or tokenism is like first step on the rung of actual change here. So that the fact that this video is being talked about as like feminist icon. Oh my God. It's like we have such a long way to go. It's just
it's
some
like
fashion choices
it's
that
like,
are not even.
You know,
It's
like
a blip.
I'm going to take this moment to make fun of Bay Area San Franciscans, but it's like liberals who are like, oh, we believe in love and science in this house. And like, okay. Like,
Yeah, it's like, whoa, you're really saying something.
Yeah, like
you put a sign out.
Like you did your job because you put a sign out on your lawn.
Yeah, they can pat
Like,
themselves
what?
on the back. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, like the black squares for black on Instagram
right,
for Black Lives Matter. I've done my part.
Yeah.
I blacked out my profile picture. That's what we're talking about here, you guys.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of discourse around this song on K-pop Twitter and Reddit and stuff, and a lot of people have said like, oh, I've heard that Tomboy is like performative. And people are like, well, yeah, it's performative. It's K-pop. It's all a performance.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay, yes. That is one sense of the word performative. But in the sense that maybe we're referring to performative is that it's going for the bag, the gesture without the action. It's saying like, oh, I'm for girl
it's
empowerment.
going for radical cred.
Yeah.
But without
They're trying
much
to get
to show
those.
for
Yeah,
it.
they're trying to get the dollars from the people that are into whatever the thing is trending.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And again, capital F feminism, like, well, let's take action or let's do something more like Mamadol.
Yeah, sure.
Not
Be
quite
like, yeah, this is my life. And like, I don't care if you think I'm sexy or not. Like like that to me signals like the next train station for these ladies. If they are in fact at this point in their consciousness or development, which who knows, the company decides everything that we see. So who knows, but just taking it a step further, I think that the next place they can, I think that it's natural for all of us as we have like a rebellious stage to seek to feel strong and empowered in a society that makes us feel weak. And our first idea is we look at who seems to have power in the society.
Yeah.
Men.
Yep.
Big, strong men at the top. Okay, maybe I should dress like them. Maybe I should talk and curse and smoke like them. Like that's like a really obvious, logical thing to do.
Right.
But then like over time, that is not satisfying anymore. You're like, who am I? Like, why am I'm still centering the man. Even if I'm hating him, I'm still centering him in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can move past that towards what if I centered myself and stopped thinking about men? What if I focused on sisterhood and motherhood and like, you know, and that just to like bring that home and like look at what could we hope for in the future of K-pop is like, how do we decenter the male gaze, whether we're like mad at him, hate him, oh my God, my ex. Like, how about he's not even in the picture?
Yeah, how about this? Change the subject. What do you think of 21, like, 10 years ago?
Love 21.
So now, from what you're saying, where do you think, where does that fit in? Because that seems to be like kind of the beginning where you're just talking about.
They're one of my favorite groups of all time, and I don't think we've had anyone come close to what they were showing on screen.
It's a great question, John. I encourage you listeners to read this paper that we're linking because they talk about a couple of songs from 2NE1 in depth as examples of what is it, Strong Elder Sister, Ssen-Unni. But and also we talked about it quite a bit with Professor Hye Jin as well as a few examples. But I think
even 2NE1, which they were still K-pop stars, still within the kind of narrow bounds of imagination, still looked cute. They still got they still had their career cut short by YG as a business decision. And he is on record saying like they are not attractive enough. They're not pretty enough.
Yeah.
He said it's for the market, but it's about him.
And also it's like at the time, because things come around and things change. So sometimes something's not in fashion. And then next year, all of a sudden, if you just timed it right, it would have blown up. Who knows?
Yeah. But one thing I want to point out with 21 to anyone is that it's still, in spite, of the very strong Ssen-Unni theme, it still operates under the male gaze paradigm for all their songs.
They still have guns and like and I am the best.
And we brought it up in our conversation with Hye Jin, but listen to 21's song "Ugly." I think there's something special about the vulnerability and recognizing like, oh
That's
God,
it.
I hate that I care about this desire to be pretty, but at the same time, like, I think I'm ugly. I want to be pretty. I want to be like her. Again, male gaze.
Hey, I love that. That's a first step in the right direction. Is like acknowledging where you're at.
Yeah,
and
that's
how
true.
patriarchy harms us.
Being honest.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Although what's really funny about that song is that it was written by Teddy, and Teddy was crying to himself when he wrote that song. But hey,
Teddy.
A quick footnote. We talk about looks and fashion.
Yeah.
If you actually wanted to be a tomboy, I want to call out who really, quote unquote, paved the way. And in this paper that we referenced, Lee Sang-eun.
Not Amber?
This predates Amber.
No, I know. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
yeah, Sang-eun. Sang-eun. Yeah, the OG tomboy. Look at that short hair.
Yeah. So look at photos and videos of
Baggy
her.
denim.
In the 80s and the 90s.
Wow.
That is very much tomboy. That's what I think when I hear tomboy.
Yep. No makeup. Yeah.
Oh,
that's what I'm thinking. No one would dare. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The K-pop girls would not dare to look like this.
Because it's not pretty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what is pretty? But yeah, it's just like so far outside the bounds of the discourse, the imagination of the scene.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, I want to say thank you, Tina, for taking us down that rabbit hole.
Woo.
And I think we want to talk more about feminism later, but let's turn the conversation more to the song itself and the concepts and things that we're seeing. So, I mean, what anything? I kind of want to talk about the lyrics. Can we talk about the lyrics of the song?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So to sum it up in one word, not even one word, one emoji, I would sum it up with the quote unquote woozy face emoji, which is a face that's like
woozy,
like trying to smile but looking kind of drunk at the same time. That's how I view the lyrics of this song. It's like,
yeah,
okay, I kind of get where you're going, but like,
take off,
man,
hook.
Oh man, is this clumsy in execution?
Oh gosh, in terms of K-pop, like English gibberish, this is a gold mine.
Well,
yeah.
No. Here's the thing. Like, what in our 2012 episode, Stephanie, we said like sexy, single, ready to
sexy,
bingle.
free, and single. Yeah.
But bingle being like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, bingo, bingo.
Or you got fun phrases like elastic, fantastic.
Fantastic, elastic. Yeah.
Like those are K-pop English.
That's true.
Icons.
They're just like having fun with English.
Right.
Exactly. And the other thing too is even English records that are gibberish. Like, have you ever heard the record "September" by Earth, Wind, and Fire, which is huge?
Yeah, true that.
Like,
right.
So you know the story behind that. The woman that wrote those lyrics had that chorus as a filler. And she told them she just wrote gibberish right there because she's like, I'll get to that later. And so when she played it for Maurice White, he was just like, you're not touching that. And she's like, learn that you don't get in the way of a good hook. And it can be whatever. So especially with K-pop and especially when things are in different languages, there's other onomatopoeia that like, that's what attracts me to K-pop in the first place is that we don't get certain words. And in Korean, you get to say certain things that are just like, we don't get to say that because we don't speak Korean. And so you want to mix the two. To me, it's just like, do it. And I don't even care.
Ooh, yeah. I love that.
Oh, that's so great. But 100%. The thing is like, so we gave examples of like whatever the hell they want to say. It works in the line. Oh, by the way, John, that is actually very, I don't know if you know this. Forgive me for just, preaching to the choir here, but like that's actually a very common thing for a lot of songwriters for K-pop. Like, you know, maybe it's written by Nordic producers, songwriters. They'll be like, I don't know what to say here. I'm just gonna go la di da di la da da ba 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 ba, and then that ends up being the song, the lyrics that they actually use in the K-pop song.
Because it's like, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. And other times, like maybe SM will do a good job like translating that into actual lyrics, but.
There's an interview with Esna where she talks about the fact that a lot of the times it's just accidental because they hire her to come and translate lyrics.
Yep.
And when she gets there, she's just like, what are you guys thinking? Like, what's going on? And so she fixes everything, but that doesn't always happen because there's only one of her. And like, there's only a few people doing that. So a lot of the time it's just like, you know, maybe in terms of this, it could have just been like, no one was around that like could fix it.
Yeah. But going back to, so anyway, the main reason why I bring up the lyrics to begin with is that like there was an effort and then it just misses it. Like you could have rhymed these lyrics. I don't care even what you rhyme it with, even if it doesn't even make sense. I would have gone with it because it would have hit that musical beat, right? In that phrase. And this felt clumsy because it's like, okay, that didn't quite go with you know the melody.
Maybe it'll
of the
come
song.
in the next line.
And
No.
like,
Nah.
it felt like, to be honest, it just felt like Soyeon probably wrote one thing. Cube is like, we're not going to have cocaine in this song. Change it to this. And she's like, whatever. I don't understand what this means, but it sounds good. Because maybe this is what I mean by like no man, no women. When really I mean is like we can be ourselves, but I'm going to write this. And that's probably how we landed. So I would say acoustically, sonically, I love the way Soyeon delivers it. But
yeah, all the members.
The rhythm at which she delivers it and the words themselves and whether or not they rhyme just.
Yeah, a bit stunted. And, yeah, clumsy.
It was jarring.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was jarring.
Who knows? Like I can never figure out like, you know, what's in people's minds because it's like we're also in an age of like clickbait.
True.
And so who knows if somebody sat there and said, this will get people talking about it.
Yeah. Well, hey,
you know,
here we are. We're talking about it.
And we're talking. Well, actually, what you just said about like, you know, the sound of Soyeon's verse, I was just reminded me while I was watching the video, listening to the build up to the first chorus. It's really well mixed. Like, because you've got so many different elements. You've got like the hip hop boom back, like the beats, and you've got the bass and stuff, but then you got these guitars, and they really did a good job of carving out space for each sound. Yeah. Like the guitars when they're building up, and then they're adding the mix. EDM, like stuff. It's like well balanced, and it's like not, but it also pumps. It's also like it hits where it needs to hit. So it's not like it's just like this wash. It's like dynamic as well. So you know, kudos to whoever the mixing engineer and the mastering engineers are because they know what they're doing with them sounds.
Yeah, it could have sounded really bad
here.
Yeah, actually, an example I would give to contrast that is "Wow Thing," another Soyeon song that was poorly mastered. This is the opposite of that. I really love the rock elements in this song. What did you guys think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it fits really well. It's clean.
It was totally clean and powerful. Because I mean, like there are certain things, like certain emotions that you can express with guitars that you can't express with drum machines. It's just you know, like that's that's the emotion.
The snarl.
Exactly.
It's got the grit, right? The textured grit. Yeah.
Texture, yes.
Yeah. Because like you think of a lot of these like synthetic EDM pop productions, it's smooth most of the time. I mean, obviously not all the time. There are a lot of exceptions to that. But like that's typically the natural inclination those choices of instruments will lead you to.
Right.
So with rock, I think
if you're playing a guitar, it's like you're playing an instrument with your hand. Like, you know, it's just like you're a human animal playing something, and it's like it's coming out like, you know, whatever you're doing in real time. Whereas if you're tapping something out on a drum machine or like, you know, making a pattern or something, it's on a grid. And it's just kind of like dun 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 dun. So you know, it's not really.
You say that,
same
John,
kind of writing.
But at the same time, I think when you, I don't know if you took a look at the music like in your DAW or any other DJ software, but like it's on the beat.
Oh,
like,
no. It's all done. No, I understand. It's all done to a machine. I'm just saying like guitar-based music in general.
For sure. Yeah.
Comes from like, you know, playing instruments rather than like tapping out drums. And I'm not
And
diminishing
it
either
evokes
one.
that emotion in us.
It's more primal because it's a guitar.
Yeah.
It's like, when you hear like a violin, it's actual like horse's tail on a cat gut.
Yeah.
And that's the sound that's coming out of it.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's why people respond to it, because it's like, it's nature. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a little deep.
Wow. That visual.
That was funny.
So Twitter user Dim Sum Life, I think listener of the
Nice
show.
Twitter name.
Yeah, great name.
Makes me hungry.
They DM'd us, I think a week or two ago, saying like, "Hey, what do you think of like bridges and songs?" And they gave an example of like a Stray Kids song they didn't exactly like because it had like a really jarring bridge. And I think the quick response we gave them at the time was like, "Well, like there's no rules, and usually bridges and songs are just thrown in there because just mechanically." The way things spread for virality, that's just the best. More often than not, that's just the best way to spread a song. To have
and
one
you have
bridge.
to give your vocal members a chance to shine and like do a high note. Like obviously, that's part of the formula.
Yeah,
it's sarcasm.
What was the song?
Oh, I can't remember, and I don't want to get in any more trouble with the Strays.
Text it to me if you find it or something, because I'm
Okay.
interested in knowing like what they didn't like.
Yeah. So Dim Sum Life, go ahead and DM DJ
Yeah, Dim
John.
Sum Life, get at me, DJ John Main.
There you go.
I'm on Twitter.
There you go.
Hit me up.
Yeah.
But I bring up the bridge because my favorite part of this whole song is the bridge. Right when we get the la 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 la, and you start seeing them like evil Barbie swaying side to side, about to commit murder. Like that was like, I can imagine a whole song, like a whole separate song in that direction. In fact, it probably was based upon a whole nother song. A lot of people have mentioned Billie Eilish's Bad Guy. Very similar bass line. Not identical, but similar, of course, inspired by. But I love it. I think visually what we're seeing on the screen at that time, I thought that was a really good move for I-dle and Cube, frankly. Like, we talk about grit and edginess and subjecting norms. I thought that was just not something we see in K-pop, especially when it comes to murder.
Totally agreed.
Yeah. So one member was notably missing from this comeback. And I think they all... Oh, our member, yes. But I meant I-dle was missing a member. Yeah. PDM, Michaela was supposed to join us tonight, but she got called into work last minute. So I would have loved to have her thoughts on a lot of this. But yeah, I-dle, they were without a member. And they were able to keep going as if nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep,
and
that's
this also
part of the K-pop scandal playbook.
I don't know anything about it. What happened?
Former member Soojin got in trouble for claims of bullying people as a youth.
Was it just I don't want to say just, but it was past allegations of bullying during high school?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy. That's so crazy to me. I mean, like, I don't really care if people come at me, because it's like, I don't know, like, I just don't care. So like, I'll just say what I think. If that's okay. What it's like, if we all had cameras on us for like high school years,
oh my God,
and back in whatever, when things were in a different, like, things have changed in the last 5 years. And if someone's trying to get me for something I said or thought or did, thought police style, I'd just be like, who's innocent? Like, who, and it's like, did anybody break the law? Did somebody break a law? That's where it's like, okay, all right, you got something to say. But if no one broke a law and maybe somebody's got feelings got hurt, but then you may apologize if it actually happened or something, then it's kind of like case closed, party people. But for whatever reason, people want to like dead people's careers on allegations that like sometimes aren't proven. I mean, I don't know what happened in this case, but did anybody prove anything?
it was inconclusive. And by the way,
it doesn't even matter. Once the scandal rises, the person gotta go.
Yeah, but
we wrote about this extensively in the prior edition of our newsletter. So I'll send you that, DJ John.
I'll check that out. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people
No,
come at me and be like,
I was basically saying what you're saying. Like none of us could survive the scrutiny if our past lives were judged like that.
Yeah.
So crazy, man.
Yeah, but what's particularly interesting about it is that for the longest while, Cuba's in her court. Like they were on her side to be like, no, this is completely false.
Until they couldn't.
Wrong. Yeah. And
the classic, the online mobs.
Yeah. So
that's almost like the patriarchy thing you're talking about. It's just like it gets to a point where it's just inescapable and you just have to make a decision and cut your losses because whatever the thing was ignited to the point where it's just like it doesn't matter who's right or wrong anymore. This is just what the reality is.
So the facts don't matter.
I want to give a plug for the Authentic series.
Speaking of bullying, online mobs, facts don't matter. Yeah, reminds me of Tablo and what he went through with Ta Jin-yo.
Yeah, and everything around that, it got to a point where like, well, John, you're saying like, well, what's the law? What law was broken? Because that's where you really got to care. But in this case, like, okay, the only law they had to go off of was like defamation or like lying on official documentation. But even for like, what documentation do you need to be a rapper? Like, do you need to say that like I graduated from Stanford to be a rapper? Like
School of Hard Knocks.
It hurts you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. Even those were the claims we made against him, that he was lying to have done all these things to show that he's incredible, worth being on all these talk shows.
Because he was hustling? Because he was a hustler?
Like, I'm not going to.
I mean, it's weird because it's like in different cultures, things get like, condemned or rewarded. Like in America, if somebody did that, they'd be like, yeah, that's cool. I mean, somebody made it the presidency that way here, so.
Yeah.
That's a whole other.
Oof.
Yeah.
It's getting hot in here.
Yeah.
Hey, no, I love it. We need to have DJ John back on.
Okay, yeah, DJ John.
More spicy banter. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a sentiment like around bullying and around like the documentation with Tablo. There was like a pushback for a sense of injustice. Like I think in the U.S. we're slowly wisening up to class warfare and class division, and like billionaires taking advantage of people, maybe subtly. But in that same way of like injustice, we're realizing that between like the gold spoon, silver spoon, brown spoon, or whatever the wooden spoon is in Korea. And a lot of the way people were like waking up to those injustices were like, well, this person was able to lie through what school they went to in order to get this job. Or this person was able to get this, I-dle position because, whatever reason, despite having this trouble with past. So I think for the public at large, it's driven from a sentiment of like, let's get justice because all these people are getting ahead of us. Meanwhile, us like, wooden spoon people have to like toil away. We have an unfair game. That's probably where that sentiment is coming from.
Pain is real, but the target is not. Yeah, the target and the method is not.
I agree.
Yeah.
But not defending it, but, it's just so we can empathize and sympathize with it.
Yeah, we should understand where that's coming from. It's very real pain.
I think that like, I'm all for cultural progression. Like if people need to be called out for saying certain things, that's freedom of speech to me. It's just like, you should be held responsible for the things that you say. It's like not necessarily, whatever, but like somebody else should be able to say what they think too. And if more people say, no, we don't agree with you anymore, I'm glad that things have progressed in the last 5, 10 years, 20 years. I mean, like I was an adult in the 90s, and I'm telling you, if you were alive then, there's a movie called Mid-90s by, what's his face? Jonah Hill, which is crazy because it's like the language in it, you forget how pervasive certain words were.
Oh man!
It was everywhere, and it's cringy now. And the way they treat it is like it was just regular vernacular, and no one's cared. No one said anything.
That's true. Yeah, sometimes I go in and I watch movies from then, and I'm like, oh, that didn't age well.
Anymore. Yeah, not even from like the 2008 or something, 2016. Yeah. Sometimes I've seen comedy routines that are just like, oh man, that just wouldn't fly in.
Yeah.
3 years from when you said that.
Yeah.
Like, so,
Yeah.
But yeah.
You're right.
But I'm glad
we're
that
always
things
shifting.
progress that
Nothing
way.
is in stone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Should we do, by the way, like, I love this conversation, but like, I'm just going to call it now. We're going to get some hate comments for this episode.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I love it.
Just direct it all
Did
at
we
me.
have any
Direct it all
factual
at me.
errors?
And factual errors we'll issue corrections on. We did that for our Big Bang episode, but like, you know, like we're grown ups, and we have the liberty to change our minds in light of new evidence.
Yeah.
One.
And if someone wants to, criticize and say something, it's like, it's not like we're not going to listen.
Yeah.
And like, maybe we'll learn from it too. So it's all good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's
We're
bad.
all
It's
ears.
just like, hey.
Yeah. But I'm expecting people to come after me, even though Soyeon is my main bias. They're going to be like,
Oh,
why are
I
you going
know.
to attack Soyeon?
They're not
this
coming
way?
after you. They're not coming after you.
They've come after me before, John.
Nah.
Okay, so let's give
Haters.
them another. Let's give haters even more ammunition. Are we going to give the song Daebak or not?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Are we okay? We're gonna do the Daebak?
What do you think?
Daebak.
Should we do it?
Yeah.
do you do?
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
Okay.
Is this a tradition?
Yeah, it's a stupid tradition, John.
Oh.
I'm all for it.
Okay. All right. So taking everything that we've said into account, co-opting feminism, not exactly being tomboy, being a really good rock song though, is I-dle's Tomboy. Daebak or not?
Yeah, it's a not for me.
Whoa.
I like their previous songs better.
Which song? Which songs do you like there more?
La Tata.
Lots of time, really?
That was like their first joint. Take it away
Han
back.
is probably my favorite song by them.
And Han,
Yeah.
yeah, Han as well. I like their earlier stuff a bit better.
like
But
Blow Your Mind
I
Off
appreciate their experimenting. They always are a conversation starter.
Yeah.
So there's that.
It was an experiment they definitely worth taking for sure. Okay.
Okay.
Who wants to go next?
You want me to go next?
Sure.
Daebak. I like
okay.
it. It sounded good. It was a big sound, and Soyeon killed it, and everybody else killed it too. I don't know. It sounded awesome. The video looked awesome, and Daebak is awesome, right?
Woo.
So
That's right.
Boom.
Get it.
Yeah.
Peter.
All right. You already know it's day to the Bach for me.
Of course.
So
I'll give you 3 reasons why. Jen Soyeon.
Oh, wow.
Soyeon.
Okay. No. All right. I think we know the third. We'll just.
Why don't you make it 4?
okay.
Doesn't she have another alien?
Oh, yeah. Right.
I thought you wrote 5. All right, well, go ahead.
Yeah. I think like, did it actually become a tomboy? No. Are there issues with the lyrics and the delivery, the melodic and rhythm delivery of the lyrics? For sure, there's issues there. But is it like a banger song? Oh yeah, I love it. Like my first impression coming out of that press conference, like, oh, that's a jam. That's a good rocking single. Like I really love the bridge. I really love villainous, murderous Barbie dolls.
Yeah, that's funny.
And I think it's absolutely like the texture, both in the sound and the looks. Like you've got a lot of these like analog film, like camera visuals, like right direction for I-dle. And like if you look at, we discussed like their discography to date. John, I don't know if you noticed this, like as a DJ, like they've got tracks that are like always between the 100, not always. I guess there's some in like 70 beats per minute, but most of the time it's like between 100 and 120 beats per minute. It's like in that Goldilocks zone between those two tempos that like, frankly, very few other K-pop groups are doing for their main single. Like I-dle occupies that like quirky, weird zone where there's a lot of experimentation. And this is just the right type of experimentation that I want to be seeing in K-pop. Obviously, we have a lot to say about what feminism should be and how we should see more of that in K-pop, but this song is Day to the Bach.
Woo.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Oh, you got outnumbered, Stephanie. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
I don't know. How does that work? I mean, like, does somebody get a prize? What goes on now?
We
You get a prize.
We get different levels of love or hate by the listeners.
So we're gonna get. I know I'm probably gonna get a bunch of hate, but no one really cared. Like I have like 3 followers and both of you, so that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just followed you. So now you have 3. No.
Exactly. So like, no one's gonna hate on me. Peter, and if anybody hates on Peter, like who would ever hate on Peter?
I know.
BTS
For what reason?
fans,
He's so nice.
Twice
Get out of
fans.
So agreeable.
That's just nah, dude. That doesn't mean anything. You know? Come on.
Okay. Well,
Come on,
you guys
man.
are trying to make me feel better for when it inevitably comes, and it will. So
No. It's all
one
good.
last thing. I'm sorry, I'm like droning on this episode, but like I would really want to encourage listeners, definitely read this paper that we're linking in the story. There's a lot of really interesting references to being like what is it, like Gizzy B, like, you know, CL's like fandom, like
Gizzy Bae.
Gizzy Bae, and like what
Yeah.
like quote unquote being a bitch in like the Western sense, and we're seeing that like, you know, in Soyeon and Jessie, and that's like a way that, you know, you can see that as a theme and the way that they've tried to subvert the norms. I don't think they do it. I agree with the paper authors in that, but I think it's just a really interesting set of
Right. And where I wish the paper would have gone further, one step, is like to not lay blame at the feet of the artists
Oh,
for
yeah,
actually
true
making
that.
choices on any of this.
Yeah.
Like we actually don't know how much input they're allowed to have. There's actually this whole behemoth corporation making these design decisions.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm going to do them.
just 1 point.
I'm
Yeah.
going to do them a solid. So also check out CCTV, Chris and Chan podcast. They talk about that dynamic actually around like the negotiation on the back end on the industry. end.
Yes.
So check
Yes.
that discussion out. Okay. Sorry. Long episode. John, anything you want to plug? Or we know what you want to plug.
Yeah, man, I gotta plug my mixes because I mix K-pop relentlessly. I have a 275 record 1 hour K-pop mega mix of 2021
What?
party people. It's nuts. 275 records in an hour. I think that's a world record. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
you can get that at kpopmaine.com. I live in Maine, USA. I'm from DC, but I live in Maine. And kpopmaine.com is where you can get at those mixes. And, you know, I have like a few hundred listens. I need it up. So check it
Go
out.
listen to everything.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
Good looking
Yeah,
out.
we'll have a link to that in this episode.
I want to thank Peter for having me. Really appreciate it. For everything. You know what I mean?
Always,
Thank you.
Always. Yeah, really good mixes. I love just the way you it's a lot of isolated instruments, or the way you blend the different instrumentals together, and then like plucked, like, you know, hand selected like acapellas and vocals, such that it becomes like just one long musical journey. So that's to my knowledge, you're the only DJ doing that, John. So
because I tried looking around for other DJs that are doing it like this, and I didn't see any, so I was just like, I better do it.
yeah. So anyway, give it a listen while you're doing other things, while you're driving, while you're
Check it out.
Okay, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. We need more reviews, so be sure to do that. Unless you hate what we have to say, then you can just disregard that last request.
You can like you can review, but it's like it's engagement, right? I mean, does it help anyway?
No, not if they give a 1-star rating.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, if it
That's
gives it
not
one,
helpful.
give us 5 stars and then hate on us. That's fine.
that's
Just
good.
give it
We're fine
5
with
stars and say like, you know, like I listened to the whole thing, so I have to give it 5 stars, but I did not agree with this. I did not agree with that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like disagreements are fine.
Yeah.
You know, it's just hating for no reason is just like, you know what you're doing.
Yep.
Like knock
Thank
it off.
you.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Thank you.
man, DJ John.
Woo.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Okay, we're gonna end it there. By the way, I'm at DJ Peter Lowe. Let's give our socials really quick. I'm sorry, I should have done that. I'm at DJ Peter Lowe. Where are you guys at?
I'm at sparker2 on Twitter.
I'm at DJ John Main, spelled Jon, party people.
And you can reach all of us at the Kpopcast. Okay, so we'll put it there, and we'll catch you all again next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace.
Take it out. Take it out. Take it out. Take it out.